Well, Donald Trump has been acquitted by the Senate of obstructing Congress and abusing the power of his office as president. The vote brings to an end only the third presidential impeachment trial in US history and comes as the president is in the early days of his re-election campaign.
Senators, how say you? Is the respondent, Donald John Trump, guilty or not guilty?
A question which Congress has wrestled with for 2 months. The impeachment drama had reached its final act, but the ending had long been predicted.
Mr. Casey, guilty. Mr. Cassidy. Mr. Cassidy, not guilty.
2/3 of senators needed to vote to convict the president of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, but they failed to get even a simple majority.
It is therefore ordered and adjudged that the said Donald John Trump be, and he is hereby, acquitted of the charges in said articles.
But there was one notable dissenter from the president's party, the man who was his predecessor as the Republican nominee.
The president's purpose was personal and political. Accordingly, the president is guilty of an appalling abuse of public trust. Corrupting an election to keep oneself in office is perhaps the most abusive and destructive violation of one's oath of office that I can imagine.
Mitt Romney was at times emotional as he spoke and says he expects abuse from the president for his vote. Mr. Trump denied he'd pressured Ukraine's president to investigate his Democratic rival Joe Biden for corruption, and almost all his supporters agreed.
It certainly isn't impeachable. It's not even wrong. Quite to the contrary, this is exactly the sort of thing the American people elected President Trump to do.
Democrats tried and failed to call witnesses like former National Security Advisor John Bolton. Instead, the impeachment trial became a daily soap opera which lacked new characters and with the same script lines endlessly recycled.
The Senate should convict President Trump, remove him from the presidency, and disqualify him from holding future office.
The votes to acquit came less than 24 hours after the president delivered a triumphant State of the Union address, saying the economy has never been stronger and bringing his supporters to their feet.
Our spirit is still young. The sun is still rising. God's grace is still shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House and architect of impeachment, caused huge controversy with her response to the speech. It epitomized America's yawning political divide, but may alienate independents. For Democrats, removal through impeachment was always going to be a long shot, but the tactic may have backfired. He's still in the White House. It's now up to the voters as to whether Mr. Trump should be evicted. Ian Woods, Sky News, Washington.
Donald Trump is set to make a statement about his acquittal tomorrow from the White House. That's US time. In the meantime, of course, he's taken to Twitter to repost a video based on a manipulated Time magazine cover that jokingly suggests he'll now remain president forever. We've also had reaction from senior US Senate leaders. Mitch McConnell was quick to criticise the Democrats in the wake of the verdict.
So I'm not sitting here predicting what will be the biggest issue in November, but I can tell you this. Right now, this is a political loser for them. They initiated it. They thought this was a great idea. And at least for the short term, it has been a colossal political mistake.
But his counterpart Chuck Schumer says Republicans will have to justify their acquittal to the American people.
I believe the American people will realize that this was one of the largest cover-ups in the history of our nation. I believe the American people will know who stood in the way of truth, who were afraid of the facts, who covered up. And make no mistake about it, the drip, drip, drip of evidence is going to keep coming out. With each new revelation, Republicans are going to have to answer for their votes. They chose to turn their back on the American people and stand for a cover-up.